right. Welcome to the Unqualified for Space podcast with me, Michael Hodges. And today I have my first guest on the show, Chris. Chris is an Army veteran, about to become a first-time dad, and the number 2 Cybertruck fan in the world. Welcome to the show, Chris. How are you doing today?
You know, I'm just losing my mind right now. I am, every time I hear not only things about the Cybertruck and about, my kid, I am just elated, man. I appreciate you for having me on.
I really appreciate you being the first guest or victim, however you want to call it, that on the show.
Either or.
So I have to say, first off, thanks for your service as a veteran myself. So I definitely appreciate it.
Of course.
And congratulations to you both on the kid. I know that's an exciting time.
Oh my God, it's so exciting.
Get your sleep now while you can. Just saying.
Yeah. I've been thoroughly enjoying it as of recently.
All right, so I'd like to start off with the first kind of topic we can discuss, if you'd like, is what is interesting or not interesting about space to you?
So, I mean, I think every boy growing up wanted to be an astronaut at some point. Mm-hmm. There is this fascination with, looking up and seeing stars and just understanding like, oh man, there's different planets and this, Jupiter and Saturn are the gas planets and, all this other, it's kind of basic idea of space that you have as a kid. And then as you get older, when you're starting to look up, you realize just how much more than 9 planets there are. I'm always going to say Pluto's a planet. I'm pretty sure this is very commonplace. It's in my books. But I think the beautiful, beautiful thing about space is just how infinitesimal that makes us.
Yeah, we're basically a speck of nothing in the cosmic ocean.
And it that does allow me at least to kind of look at things that's going on in my own life, trials and tribulations and things like that. And then in the grand scheme of things, I'm just like, man, like there is a diamond planet out there. You know what I mean? There are dying stars that we will never get to see. There are planets that you and I will never be able to jump to. And just that idea of Earth being like this hub, this home base for like as a jumping point, interplanetary exploration is incredible, man. Space is terrifying.
Yeah, it definitely is when you look at all the variations of planets, stars, all the nurseries, all that type of stuff. I mean, it's just insane when you actually get into the weeds of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've always been interested in space for a lot of the same reasons why you said, just the perspective I think it gives you. And I think it kind of, I won't say forces, but I mean, that's like the best term I can think of to think of yourself in a way that it's not just, you on this thing. There's this whole infinite possibly amount of universes and people and all this type of stuff that you could actually get into it if you want to, that makes your head kind of spin when you get into the physics and all that.
Really is. And we've been to the moon.
Yep.
Like that's where and mind you, that is no small accomplishment. There's, as far as we know, humans are the only beings to leave their home planet and go to something else. And that is just, there's something magical about it. I think Elon Musk is going to put us in Mars or on Mars with that beautiful Cybertruck, pressurized Cybertruck just driving around on Martian territory, taking no names. Oh,
I'd love to be one of the first people to try that. I'm not going to lie. That would be.
And look, let me sign up.
Yeah, for real. My wife and I have had this discussion before of if it becomes something that's normalized, which I think it will within the next 10 to 20 years, as far as relatively normal schedule sending people to Mars. I was like, I'd honestly try it. And she's like, yeah, you can do that. And then you can come back and let me know how it was.
So I don't know about the coming back part. Coming back
Yeah.
part might be a little harder than
The
the
coming
getting
back
there
part is going to be a little bit difficult, but yeah.
But babe, I mean, you just come with me, please.
She's got horrible motion sickness though, so I don't know about that. We'll have to see, but
yeah, I don't know.
I guess I should state for anyone watching this video or listening to it that we are completely unqualified to be talking about these topics, so don't take anything we say as the gospel.
I mean, unless it's about the Cybertruck.
Unless it's about Cybertruck, then
I think we're good to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can't wait. I can't wait to see what the next 10 years will unfold, especially in terms of SpaceX and interplanetary travel.
I think they said they're sending people to Mars. What was that? 2024.
That's the first slated date. Yeah.
And it's crazy that, I mean, these people, I would consider them heroes because they know what they're doing. You get what I mean? You were essentially signing a death sentence for the advancement of humanity.
Yep.
And those 6 individuals, I mean, imagine what's going through their mind, when they're in that ship, before the launch, before they see that red planet, before they see our closest neighbor, before they see any of that. Imagine what has to go through your mind and know, okay, I'm about to go die for humanity. That is something that is just, it's phenomenal, man. I mean, everybody says, yeah, I'll die for my family, I'll die for my children, blah, 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 blah. Imagine choosing to do that for a species. That is, those people, big shout out to those people, whoever they are.
Yeah, that's going to be the space you'd have to have like in your head, you have to have your mind right in order to fulfill a mission like that. Would just have to be, you'd have to be knowing exactly what you're doing and no reservations about it whatsoever.
But imagine landing. And then I think all those, I mean, not all of them, but at some point, once you land and they're seeing their own boot prints in Martian sand, and they're looking up and seeing a sky that 108 billion humans have never seen before. The first 6 people to do that. Oh man, if they could write a memoir, the most interesting part of their entire life would be those first seconds of just, it was cold, but I mean,
I'd say it's got to be undeniably beautiful to be on that planet because you don't have any of the light pollution from Earth. So you're just going to be able to look up and see all this. They do have a lot of dust storms. So if there's dust, they might not be able to. But, like if it was a clear day, the amount of stuff you should be able to see would just be insane.
Just crazy. And it probably looked like all those, what do they call that when they have the long exposure films? And you look at like
like
stars
the time lapse type stuff.
Yeah, it is probably going to be gorgeous. They'll probably be like, yeah, this is it. I'm going ahead and lay down right now.
Yeah, I can't get any better than that, right? I'd imagine the first person to step out of the spacecraft onto the surface of Mars. So it'd be a lot like Neil Armstrong with the thought process of, I have no idea what's about to happen. Even though we have a lot of data and we have rovers, so we're not going to fall through like that they thought on the moon landing. They thought they actually would just like fall through the dirt.
I mean, so science has come from somewhere, right?
Yeah. So I mean, the headspace you'd have to be in to do that first step, I imagine it would take a lot just to kind of get you moving. But at the same time, exploration has always come at a cost. So eventually people are going to fail and people are going to die on Mars. That's no question about it whatsoever. So the first people that are going to be, like you said, they're heroes in my book for sure.
I mean, you know what, honestly, and then the real debate happens maybe on approach to Mars, where the 6 of them have to look at each other and go, all right, who's going to be the first? You're either going to have 5 really humble people, or you're just going to have 6 egos just going at it. I wouldn't be surprised if only one individual makes it to Mars. Like that might look. I'm not trying to fight with anybody else. I'm not trying to have this going on. I would like to be the first person to touch Mars. Pow. little dust around the boot prints. In my mind, I'm obviously, romanticizing it, but yeah, I think that, it's it, and then it's going to be silent. I think that's the most terrible thing or terrifying thing to me about space.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's no sound. I mean, of course, it's going to be like wind. You might hear like an earthquake. I would assume Mars would have an earthquake too.
Yeah, I think
right?
they've registered earthquakes on there, but I'm not sure as far as like the decibel, if they're able to hear it from instruments or not.
But the silence of space is that I think that's what does it. As somebody who talks a lot,
Mm-hmm.
silence to me is this. It's so nerve wracking. It's like it gets right under my skin. I was watching Gravity by
Yep.
the movie with like Sandra Bullock in it,
Mm-hmm.
and then watching her just tumble and just tumble and tumble and tumble before the plot armor came and saved her. Imagine, oh man, that gives me chills to think that this is what's gonna this is how I'm gonna be for the rest of my life.
Yep.
It's just tumbling and silence, and all I've got is my thoughts.
And
now, if they have the Cybertruck, okay. I mean,
you might be able to survive re-entry on that. I mean, who knows?
I mean, look, if they can get Spotify out there, you never know. You need a really powerful signal, and I don't know if humans have the capacity to send Wi-Fi to another planet. But I think SpaceX to kind of have that all solved.
Yeah, I think the pace of innovation at SpaceX well outweighs any other company currently. Even though, like, I give it up to all the other people trying to attempt space. It's the hardest endeavor probably in human history.
Yeah, human history.
I mean, you can't really compare much else to what it takes to do that. But like, everybody's got their preferred. Some people like, ULA. Some people like SpaceX. Some people like the space shuttle. There's all differences, but I think the pace of innovation is what sets them apart.
Yeah, and I think that you look at things and you hear people talk about competition, or these are the rockets that can kind of compete with SpaceX rockets and things like that. And the main problem I have with all that stuff is that, okay, well, where's your competition? SpaceX. I continue to watch that video of the boosters landing back on, and that is so wild to me that they did that and continue to do it. And then you've got like these like what ifs, like, oh, Blue Origin has a reusable this, and it's like, okay, but where? Like SpaceX has gone from having 2 feet on the ground to continuously sending rockets up in space, and that's no company that we have right now is like you said, going at a rate of advancement like SpaceX is. And it's held, and the reason why it's held by people who are helmed by people who have so much passion and so much desire to want to get to space. And everybody knows from the bottom to the top that it's going to take something different. It's going to take a lot of pressure, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of effort to get to where we want to go. Whereas some of these other companies may have CEOs that are just held by money.
Yep.
And it's just phenomenal. It's phenomenal what SpaceX is doing.
Yeah, the other companies, I think, either held by money or they're held back by the thought of failure and losing that and losing the product they're trying to build. But I think the only way that you can advance in a meaningful way is just knowing it's going to fail. At some point, it's going to happen. So you might as well just get over it and do it, type thing.
And that's when you have people who, like Elon, are driven by this purity of purpose. It's like, okay, I've got my failures, but look at what it's paving the way to. You had naysayers left and right coming out of the woodwork. People who never cared about space say that, oh, Tesla can't do, or SpaceX can't do this. Oh, we'll never do this. We'll never do that. And it's just like, well, look what they're doing now. They've made space, accessible for everybody. Everybody cares about what SpaceX is doing. Everybody cares that we are trying to get to Mars. That is something that, you weren't talking about space 15 years ago. I mean, I guess you were. It was there. But now it's become so commonplace for people to want to explore these things, and comes from the man Elon, man.
Yeah.
The dude made the Cybertruck, bro. I'm just saying, like, come on.
Yeah, I think I was, good enough to actually I live in Florida here, so I'm about 40 minutes away from Cape Canaveral.
Mm-hmm.
So I was lucky enough to go see the first Falcon Heavy launch. And I took my kids to go see it because I saw a space shuttle launch as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really what kind of like kicked off my, just overwhelming want to like study anything and everything regarding space. So I figured that was a first in history event. So I took my kids to see it. And I think that I'd venture to say, at least from personal opinion, that SpaceX is the reason in the last decade why people are even interested in space.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, if you look at the Falcon Heavy launch, how many people were out there? It was...
hotels sold out.
Yep.
I mean, people were glued to their screens to watch this. And then, typically, or what is it, icing on the cake, when you see everybody's reaction, everybody who turned a wrench, everybody who did non-destructive testing, everybody who painted or did coding, or from top to bottom, everybody was invested in that launch. And it showed. It really did show. And that passion that your employees have shows across the board. And amazing, like you said.
Yeah, it was. I've never seen so many people happy to see something leave the Earth. You know what I mean?
Right. It's people, tears, crying, confetti everywhere, and I'm just at a loss for words. It is an increasingly beautiful thing that they do, and they continue to do, and they continue to build on. Like having the ability to reuse their rockets is able to, what they're able to do with that is something that these companies who, like Saturn V, like, once everything got out, needed to go, everything dropped to the bottom of the ocean. And I mean, of course, I'm not knocking Saturn V. Big shout out to the OG who got us up there.
Yeah.
But being able to see, okay, this is how this reacted after it got back into orbit. These are the things that were weakened. These are the things that needed to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Reinforced. Having that continuous data to continue to drive advancement for it, it's undeniable.
Yeah, the Saturn V was definitely a beast, like workhorse type of a rocket. I mean, if you wanted the biggest damn thing possible to take you up, that's pretty much what you got. You know what I mean?
That's how we got there. I mean, that's 45 years ago, man.
Yeah.
They were sitting on chips and rope. So
and the power of the engines that they output was, I mean, it's pretty much unmatched even to this day. The Falcon Heavy is like the best thing currently that we have to even try to get near the thrust weight ratio that those things had. So, I mean, it's insane when you really think about 40, 50 years ago, they were able to produce engines that were more powerful than almost what we can do today.
Well, they threw what, like $170 million into the Saturn V?
Yeah, but probably even more than that, to be honest.
Yeah, just for inflation. Yeah, I think that if SpaceX were able to spend like $1 billion or so per, I mean, I feel like their rockets would be ridiculous. They probably push Earth. Like, with the amount of ingenuity that this company has, you'd have like 15, 16 rockets just pushing this tiny, little payload up. Yeah, I think that, even more so than the money that the Saturn V rocket had into it was that initial, that we got to get to space. We're trying to accomplish this mission. And the money was one thing, and it was like, yeah, okay, it was expensive for the time, but look what the payoff was. How do you? What's the price that you put on getting somebody to the moon?
I think it's kind of, you can't really put a price on that because what it did for humanity, I think it's priceless. You can't really quantify that amount. I don't think. I mean, I'm sure you could if you got brass tacks. We spent $3 billion on the blah 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 blah, but I mean,
got to the moon, bro. I'm just saying, like we got to the. I mean that's crazy to me that like somebody, we wake up every morning and put our feet on the same earth. No offense, Earth. I love you. I do. You raised me. Like, I am a product of this.
Yep.
But somebody was able to put some weight on another rock in our solar system. That's a $3 billion venture to me. Brass tacks, what have you, that's worth it. Absolutely.
So while we're on the topic of reusable versus non-reusable, do you consider the space shuttle reusable?
I mean, I would say yes, only because
this is a hot debate between a lot of people. So I figured I'd throw that out there.
Yes. In a sense of like it's being reused, right?
Yeah, in the most like technical sense, yes, it is.
Yeah. I mean, like, do I think it could take the continued battering? No. I think at some point everything has an expiration date. But I mean, as it stands, I don't necessarily think we can really afford to just continue to make all of them, So we kind of have to reuse it. It's reusable in the most like purest sense of the word. If you looked at the dictionary, the word reusable, able to be used again, like, yeah, it can be. But is that something that you're probably gonna, all right, hey, this is the 50th time it's gone up. It's like, okay, no, let's go ahead and show this for now. So what do you think? What's your stance?
Well, I love the space shuttle, like the Saturn V, it's the OG, it got us up into, at least got us up into low Earth orbit, again, in a sense. But as far as the reusability category, like I said, in the most technical sense, yes, it was being reused, but in my way I take the definition of it, as I'd say no, only because the amount of money it costs to refurbish it for launch.
Makes sense.
So
I mean, at that point, you might as well just make a new one.
Yeah, because they could have made a new one for the amount that they spend on each time to refurbish it.
I mean, I think there's a nostalgia factor in it. Everybody wants it to continue to go, continue to push. Oh yeah, that's the one. That's the thing you see as a kid. It's. But yeah, I guess I'm with you.
Yeah.
It's partially reusable.
Yeah, that's the best term I would say is partially reusable.
Yeah, it can be. Like there are things about it that we should, but if you have to refurbish something so often, at some point you're not working with the same spaceship. I mean, hell, even us as humans, I'm not the same human I was 7 years ago.
Nope.
There are parts about me that had to go, the parts about me that had to get stronger and things like that. But yeah, for the price of refurbishment, I mean, shit, you might as well just make a whole new one. That's what SpaceX is here for, man.
And when you consider the cost per launch was somewhere around like $3 billion.
Yeah, and I think the problem is, especially these companies, or at least the budget is so low. They got like $13 billion a year, or $13 billion to I think that's their funding budget. What are they supposed to do with $13 billion a year? No, that's Los Angeles makes more money than that. Like there's so limited money being spent putting something into space that they might not have the time or the opportunities to rebuild or to make an entirely new space shuttle, which is why they have to keep reusing the same one. Do you know the time it took from start to finish, like production wise? How long?
Like from when they started building the space shuttle, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think the tiles were the longest hiccup because they kept like breaking and cracking and doing all. So they kept having to figure out new ways of making the tiles. So I think on the order of when it started as a concept to when like the first one was actually like tested, I believe, and I'm probably wrong here, but I think it was somewhere on the order of about 20 years.
Okay. Now, I guess if we have that technology now, right? If we know kind of this is what we needed to do, like the towers, for instance, we kind of got past these hiccups. Where do you think the majority of the money went into? The research stage, you get what I mean, or the actual like implementation?
I think the implementation probably most likely, because all the previous rockets were just a multi-stage to orbit, and then they just dumped the pieces. You know what I mean? They never had attempted, like an airplane, to reuse anything. So I think the holdup was, we can't let this fail. So we're going to test and test and test and test until we 100% know it's not going to just disintegrate on reentry. So I think a lot of that was because of that.
So then when you have like, you have that happening, and you have like, okay, we got to test and test and test and test and test. And then it comes back into, and then we start to use it again. You have to run even more tests now, because now you don't have a 100%, unused product. Your battery, your launch at 100%, you start to decrease the efficiency as you have to continuously use it over and over and over again. So I think that, it would be better if they had the funding to build more of them, or to build multiple. But for some reason, even though it being 2020, we still see space as this unnecessary venture. It doesn't make, if we had 10% of the military budget, and mind you, I love the military. I'm here. If we had 10% of the military budget, we're talking about 100 or like 80 to $100 billion that would be able to be put into a space program instead of necessarily the space force. I think that we would be able to use, or we'd be able to have more of these vessels than we do now. But there, it's all up to really, politics.
Yeah, and there's politics, and a lot of the cost plus contracting was around in those days. So they were basically incentivized to not meet deadlines. So which is, I think, that's a lot of the fault. So I guess, if I want to call them that, on companies that aren't SpaceX, besides Rocket Lab. I think they're kind of Rocket Lab's kind of like the exception, because they operate a lot like SpaceX does in their tempo and willingness to push innovation.
Yeah, and I think that's where you get your best results. Like how we were saying with SpaceX, you have this company that's like, we're not trying to meet deadlines for the sake of meeting deadlines and getting paid. I mean, all of these things are nice, but we're trying to meet deadlines because we want to put people on another planet. And you don't have that same level of gusto from these other companies, other than, like you were saying, like Rocket Lab, maybe a few startups who probably won't even see the light of day because of how much it costs.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people don't, I think, fully appreciate the cost per pound or kilogram, depending on what system you want to go off of, that it takes to get to orbit. It's a pretty asinine amount when you actually get into it.
I think that it's not like like making cars. We've been making cars. I mean, I know we've been making cars for so long, but it's kind of a lot easier to get something to go forward and back than it is to have something go up. Pogo sticks weren't a thing until like the 90s or whenever they were created. But the concept of going up, people look at basketball players and like, oh man, they can jump 4 feet off the ground. That's crazy. It's like, yeah, 4 feet is an incredible feat for humans. Thousands of miles, to get to another rock. That is something that I think that, a lot of these older individuals, the people who are controlling a lot of this money, I don't think they have the idea to wrap their mind around the concept, because Terra has been such a that benefit for these individuals. But I think that a lot of people think that we want to leave Earth because Earth is like dying or whatever. And whether or not Earth is dying, whether or not that's actually happening, I think people don't understand the concept of why we need to leave Earth and put humans all over the place. We are a disease in the cosmos. And as what any disease wants to do, we want to spread. Imagine being able to jump between galaxies. People are like, oh man, Michael lives in Florida. I'll never see him. Like at some point, it's gonna be like, all right, I'll see you in 20 minutes. I'm gonna hop in my ship real quick, and then you start, then there's gonna be like, yeah, man, Chris lives in a different galaxy. All right, I will see you in about a week. Like that. The possibilities of it are endless, and I think what's really, really incredible with a company like SpaceX and a person like Elon Musk is he understands that there is so much more that needs to be done. If SpaceX can show we can get to Mars, there's no reason why we can't get to Uranus. There's no reason why we can't get to Neptune. There's no reason why we can't continue to explore. I don't think this is going to happen in our lifetime. You and I might see, somebody get to Neptune. It's far shot, it's or Uranus. It's a reach, but if we can get to Mars kind of like, consistently, we might even be able to build base on Mars that may catapult us, outwards. It's like, 30 seconds to Mars. The closer we get to trying to get somewhere, the more and more and more we learn from the mistakes of the past. We might get to Mars, and like you say, he wants 1 million people on Mars by 2050?
I believe that's the timeline. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a million people. That's some launches, boy. That is. How many people do you think you could fit on to Mars? Like just like realistically, I don't think we're pushing 250,000 people.
No, I don't. I mean, Mars is like the size of a planet. I think you factor about 100 people per launch on a ship. Factor like 6-7 month time frame of getting there.
You're looking at 10,000. That's all. I mean, the ship's got to come back.
Yep.
Maybe. And if they don't, then we've got to use a lot of resources and a lot of time to send 10,000 ships out there at 100 people per ship. Crazy. Do I think it's impossible? Not at all. Would I even say it's improbable? No, because of what we have seen to be done. I mean, we got electric cars out here, smoking gas cars. There might come a car that runs on air, and it's just shitting on everything on the planet right now.
Yep.
But as it stands, we got companies that are pushing the boundaries of what we know, pushing the boundaries of just being on Earth, and that is something that 1 million people by 2050. I'm not even going to sit here and say that's a pipe dream. I think it's doable. I think he can do it.
I believe it's doable as long as I'm right there. I'm probably like the biggest proponent for doing things like this. I think the biggest hiccup is going to be getting the actual people to go.
Yeah.
Because the idea of this like esoteric, I'm going to go to another planet dream that a lot of people may have when it comes down to brass tacks of, well, you're going to go there, but you're never going to come back. Like that's going to
Wi-Fi, food, I guess other people won't be a problem around like 250. Like, because then they got to spread around. You got to colonize from where you land. You can't just put people all over the place. So they'd be like, all right, I hope everybody is able to meet up and link up somehow. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think absolutely that, people want to do it. Like how you and I would probably love to go to Mars if like I knew I can get Wi-Fi. Like if I can go up the street, get some food, and like engage in kind of like normal life. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what 1 million people are going to do on Mars by 2050. I got, maybe another like NBA, another football league.
Might
You
be
know,
because the amount of people who would be able to dunk then because of the reduced gravity.
can you imagine the Hail Marys on Mars? Go long. He just launches this ball.
Yep.
Humans are running and jumping. Ah,
Yeah, your physical
ah.
capabilities for sure would be increased because of the reduced amount of gravity. So the amount of that also would bring other issues as far as, bone density and all those types of things.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think it's
you want to lose weight anyway.
Mars is something like the third gravity
Yeah.
of Earth, and the moon's about an eighth of the gravity of Earth. So, I mean, the amount of things that people would be able to just to try out would be.
Oh yeah, I would love it. I would love to be able to dunk, like just going up and just feeling like, yeah, pile, and the
Mhm.
landing. Like being able to land without like, I already got osteoporosis. I've already worked my knees into the ground, so it's a pipe dream for me to be able to jump high and
Mhm.
then land normally. But I think that I think that by 2050 we'll have something figured out.
Yeah,
Being
I
able
think it's well within reason to expect by 2050 to that be a normalcy of operation.
yeah,
I think.
we got Starlink going. They probably just put a couple satellites in orbit of Mars and have some very low bandwidth, basically 2G, or nope, not even gonna talk about it. Not even gonna talk about it.
Yeah, a lot of people probably get hot about that.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna talk about it. But very, very, very low. Basically, you'd have like the OG like razors basically,
Hmm.
and that would be kind of like your internet. Like your internet would be like AirG, a bunch of like just very text based internet. But I think with that, between 1 million people on Mars, I think we're good to go.
Yeah,
I
some people
think.
might struggle with that 14-minute delay time frame from a signal from Earth. So your Netflix show might have to queue a little bit.
I mean, look, I'll take that. I think like there's gonna come a point where like somebody who's like, man, I really got this crush on this girl. Send her a message, and then he's like, man, she hasn't texted me back in 6 weeks. So that's all right. Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
there's a lot of people on the Deep Space Network. Just chill out a
The
little bit.
DSN man.
Yep.
Yeah,
So you're while we're on this, the topic of whether we should leave Earth and colonization of other worlds and moons and things like that. Um, like you were talking about before, do you believe that the Earth can support our species for the continued existence? Let's say, obviously not 100 years. Let's say 1,000 years. Do you think that the amount the population is increasing that can handle that, where we wouldn't need to colonize, or would you believe that it's something that's imperative at this point?
I think that humans have this amazing capacity to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem now is not that the problem hasn't been addressed, because it has, but it's the unwillingness of a dying breed to take care of the planet. I think when you think of people thinking about like the future, or you look in like a lot of older movies about, have you seen Mr. Nobody?
Yep.
And you look at something like that where humans are like, yeah, like we kind of got it figured out. If we wanted to figure out a way to desalinate seawater, I think we would figure it out. You
Mm-hmm.
get what I mean? When it comes to planting trees, I think we would figure it out. The Amazon burned not because it was something that was just uncontainable. You know what I mean? Like these places aren't burning because like, oh man, there's just nothing we can do. We can do plenty. It's just politics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I think the earth, and I think was it Neil deGrasse Tyson who said it? He was like, the earth is going to continue. Humans will just die, or
Mm-hmm.
or life will just die. I think if we put all of our eggs in the right baskets and started doing things like, really doing the push for more reusable energy, I think that, yeah, absolutely. I think that humans could survive for another 10, 20,000 years. I think we
Mm-hmm.
could be here for as long as we absolutely need to be. I think that what we don't want to do is take the very same practices that we have on Earth and send them to another planet.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to have those people who are just wantonly giving tax breaks to plastic companies and not also paying these, or charging these tax companies for cleaning up. Like these, there are a lot of practices that businesses have done that have really kind of semi ruined the planet. But I think as humanity goes on, and like I said, a lot of those older generations, a lot of those older heads that are like, yeah, no, keep fracking, keep doing oil this, keep doing that. I think those individuals, once their generation kind of like passes on, and we get into this new age of people actually caring about the planet, actually wanting to do what's best for their children and future civilizations. It's not a huge number of people. You've got those people who don't care about harming the planet. Then you got those people in the middle who really don't care about anything. And then you got that small, group of people over here who want to spur on the clean air, the reusable energy, the next generation. The world is basically in their hands. It's the hope that this bubble over here of the people who want a healthier planet. It's the hope that they grow and they intrude into this like neutral party, as opposed to this kind of you know frack the planet, keep using the same stuff that's already killing us, is already doing the things that they're doing. These people in the middle that are neutral are not necessarily going to be swayed by one or the other. But right now, it's where the money is.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, so our planet is behind a paywall, and that sucks. But when I think that humans, once we get our shit together, we start looking at it from a perspective of, yeah, bro, like things can actually get better. I think things can get a lot better. I think we can figure out a way to plant trees.
Yeah.
I think we can make synthetic trees. I think all the things in the world that humans can do, we just don't do because that paywall. There are people lobbying to kill the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It blows my mind. Think about how an individual will go down in history. These very, very, very powerful companies, these very, very powerful like oil companies. Imagine their revenue and how much it would increase if they put all of that effort into renewable energy. Then you'd have these companies looked at like heroes, and people would support them, and then they would get more funding. But it's not that way, and it's crazy. But
yeah,
that's what they know.
Yeah, and I think from my take on that subject is that, like you said, the Earth it's going to be here long. It was here long before we were here, and it's going to be here long after. Whether it's on like the same look, the way it looks is the same. Who knows? But eventually, at some point in the future, there's going to be some type of event which is going to take out humanity. I mean, that's inevitable. As far as like resources, like water, it's probably the most important resource in the world as far as humanity is concerned. And there's areas of the Colorado River right now that are about to lose, I think they said something about 20 feet or something like that, which is going to put about 20 million people in harm's way of reduced water intake. So there's some eventuality to which we need to prepare for, which is why I think we have to push this like colonization of other planets.
Yeah, you can get to other planets and then just send all those resources back to Earth, or don't just leave it out there. But yeah, like you were saying, nothing matters in the grand scheme of things.
Yep,
nothing matters. The sun's going to come and take us all anyway.
Yep. In about 4 billion years.
Yeah, at some point, I think humans, I think we'll be able to escape by then. I think that I think that we're closer to the last human being on Earth than we are to like the first human being somewhere else.
Yep.
I think that once that sun comes, I mean, everything is going to crunch or freeze or whatever's going to happen. It's all really futile in the grand scheme of things. I know we would like to have, Earth be this like, oh yeah, just take care of the Earth and everything would get better and everything would be good at the end of the day. It's like, yeah, but at the end of the day, everything's going to die.
The universe has its own plans as far as that's concerned.
Exactly. The order of the universe is life from destruction. It has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The earth is not going to exist. Should we do better to enjoy our time here? Absolutely.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
should we stay here? No. Let's go ahead and it's crazy though. What if every star what if everything in the universe is already exploding? And then we're trying to go to another galaxy, and then we get to another galaxy, and those galaxies is just like already dead.
It's entirely plausible that that's going on right now. I mean,
wouldn't that be something if we're just at the end of our universe? I think, I read a lot of comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of my a lot of my ideas are like comical in nature. Like there was this
people thought Einstein was comical or strange too. So I mean, there's that. So
imagine if we are at the evening of the universe, and to where it's like we explore to a point where it's like, bro, everything is dying. Everything is dying. And then we're running into other species, and they're like, hey man, I'm trying to run away from my planet because our galaxy is dying. And then we're like, oh shit, ours is dying too. And then everybody is, then we just meet up in the center, and everybody just dies, and we start all over again.
There you go.
How many universes do you think there's been?
So that's actually a topic I've actually thought a lot about. And again, I'm not the person who has the most educated opinion on this, most likely, but unless you count watching a lot of Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronauts videos. Shout out to Tim for that. Does great stuff. Tim. Yeah, he does a lot with rockets and things. I don't know if you've ever seen his content, but
yeah.
I'm actually, what I personally believe is that our universe, to what we can see, is observable. Is about 13 billion light years, across.
Okay.
So I think what happened is that our universe is what we consider the Big Bang was just the start of our observable universe.
Okay.
So I think that's part of the multiverse or the string theory aspects where it condenses down to a point at the edge of the universe, and then that condensing actually forces it to explode because everything's just trying to crush down to a small space. So I think that's what keeps happening. It just expands, cools at the ends, and then boom, and then just keeps going.
That's one of those things. And then here we are, you and I are able to just communicate across time and space. Yeah, states across, same continent and whatnot. But I mean, it's like the Matrix. There were 6 iterations of the Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
There's some outside force that continues to, say, okay, we're going to wipe it because it sucks, and then we're going to relaunch, we're going to reprogram it. Mm-hmm. The universe is such a big matrix. There's so much happening outside of us, and it's crazy the thought of just existing.
Mm-hmm.
Just the fact that doing this, especially being a dad, it's one of those things I think about now. I'm like, damn, having this kid be a part of my life only made me have to come to grips with my mortality sooner than I wanted to. I was like, damn, one of these days I'm not going to be here. Of course I think about it. Of course everybody thinks about death.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, you're lying to yourself, I think.
Yeah, come on now. Really? You wake up and you be like, yeah, cool, I'm going to do all of this for the rest of my life. No. But the fact that here and now and in this tiny speck of dust that we are, that there is a grander scheme of things, that there is a being pulling the strings, or beings, or just, hey, I can't even explain it. It makes no sense to me that you and I exist.
Yep.
There is literally no logical explanation as to why I'm able to look at my computer screen and why you're able to look at yours, and we are seeing what we consider to be existence. We could be thoughts in somebody else's head. We could be the background. We could be somebody's sim game.
Yep.
And they sent us, hey, got a podcast. Go look at the podcast, and we're just
talking about space. Yeah.
Talk about space. And there's somebody who's just at a level above us in the meadow. Like, I like these guys. No. But man, existence is it's so bewildering.
Yeah.
It's such an incredible thing. And why we wouldn't want to exist in other places blows my mind. Why there are people who don't want to exist on Mars?
Yeah.
Let's go to Mars.
Yeah.
Let's
Like,
go.
especially when you consider being able to preponder our own existence versus, let's say, a caterpillar.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as we understand, from they don't understand that. Hey, like in 5 days I'm gonna die and blah 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 blah. Like they know I have to do this and then do this. That's just like their genetic code. But us being the apes that we are, able to just look out at the universe and actually ponder where we came from, is pretty miraculous in and by itself.
that is crazy. It's crazy to me. I'm hoping that I'm like Galactus. I think that would be dope. Galactus is the last surviving member of the universe before him.
Mm-hmm.
What? What? Oh my God. So I mean, I don't know. And that's what I mean by terrifying. Terrifying in the sense of it's scary, but I think when things are that terrifying, it's simply because of just how much the distance and abilities between myself and the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I can wake up and walk myself out the door and go to work every day. I'm not causing stars to implode. You know what I mean? I'm not sending gold from other galaxies and putting it and depositing them on a planet like ours. I'm not doing anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues to happen. It's happening all across the universe as far as we're concerned. I think that there's a lot of life out there. There has to be. I don't think that, our genetic makeup is anything like crazy, especially because we've got billions of species on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we have billions of species on Earth and not have billions of species in other places and billions of galaxies like that?
Yeah.
And then somebody out there is probably doing the same thing. They're probably talking to, somebody else about space.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, hey, man, yeah, man, I heard that there's this planet called Earth. And we got to go there one day, bro, because it's blue. It's not arid. It's not acidic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's the word, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
There's probably some beings out there that are just going through the same existential crises that we are, and they just want to explore. And that's the beautiful thing about space, is that there is an infinite, as far as we know, there is an infinite capacity to explore. And it's like, you watch those videos of somebody's recording, and then somebody will swing a ball, or throw a ball, and somebody will swing a bat, and then this tiny ball flies, pow, and it hits the camera, and it's like, wow. And the entirety of this space that we have, in all the directions it could have gone, and everything that it could have hit, it hit this camera. And that's what we are. We are just this, in the grand scheme of things, and all this expanse of just the world or the universe, we just happen to be here. And that is,
the amount of things that had to go right in every step of the evolutionary process for us to be here, you and I talking on this podcast right now, it's pretty out there as far as the mathematical percentages of it actually occurring.
Exactly.
So we are very lucky as a species to even, be doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And then we're gonna go to Mars in a Cybertruck. Oh, I love it.
I do too. I'm right there with you.
I'm really excited. My son's gonna see it. I'm excited for him to be like, because he'll only be 1.5. He's not gonna be super old, but I was hoping that I'm hoping. I know this sounds bad. I'm hoping the Cybertruck gets delayed just a little bit. I want all the people who just want it because it was a fad, take their 100 back. Let them fall off. All the organizations that ordered a lot of them. No, I want the true believers. And I wanted to see the look on my son's face when I pull that big old beast around the corner. I'm trying to, it doesn't make any noise. So That's what it would sound like, I'm assuming. But
Um,
yeah, no, I'm really, really, really excited for the future of humanity. I know that we've got I know there's a lot of things that are going wrong. I don't think that you hear this phrase, oh, there's so much bad going on in the world. And it's just like, no, I don't think anybody focuses on the good, at least as
yeah,
much as they should, because all the news wants to do is pander to how bad things are. But there's a lot of good people, a
yep,
lot of people who want to do a lot for this planet, and maybe getting off of it is the best thing we can do for it.
yeah, and that might be long term the best option.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? So while we're on that subject of talking about us being here and evolution and things like that, do you, and whether there's other people out there, do you think that within what we can observe of the universe, do you think there's people or beings of some sort in what we can see, or do you think that this possibility that they're just so far away that we'll never actually be able to ever get in contact with them?
Well, I think that okay, so if things are expanding kind of like outward,
Yeah,
I
exponentially.
think
Yeah.
I think if we flew inward, we would meet those things that are. I guess that sounds kind of basic, but like if everything is just this sphere, and we're going towards the outside of it, I think if we fly towards the center of the universe, we actually might be able to meet somebody who's actually trying to go outwards. But I think that in what we can see, oh, absolutely, like how
Mm-hmm.
you said, the mathematics behind what had to happen in order for our species as humans to be able to do what we're doing, you know, whatever had to happen, I'm sure can happen in other places. They might not be humanoids. They
Yeah.
might be, beings that have a lot of pressure on their planet, so they develop more of a hunched idea, but still have the capacity to solve these problems. And I don't think that standing on 2 feet is a benefit, or is a main component of why we moved on. As our common ancestors, you know, apes aren't as bipedal as as I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming people think they are. We walk around on knuckles, and you've got some of the greatest minds in history, like Stephen Hawking, who aren't able to walk, but can still continue to push forward this idea of what space and what time and what everything is. So I think in what we can see, of course, I think there may not be other people
Mm-hmm.
like humans, but I think will there be other beings out there? Oh, absolutely. There could be a being in galaxy over, or not even galaxy over. Yeah, yeah, a galaxy over, or even a couple solar systems over.
Mm-hmm.
If it can happen to us, I don't see why it couldn't happen to somebody else. I don't think there's anything inherently different about our solar system than the universe as a whole. We look at that planet that's like made of diamond, and for us, it's like, yo, that's really cool. They might be out there like, yo, they got planets out there that are made of gas. Like it's. I think that there's definitely something out there.
Yeah.
What do you think? You think that we're kind of looking at you know what we you think we're looking at a lifeless observable universe?
No, I think that there's the law of averages, would basically mean that there's got to be something. I
Yeah,
mean, the entire universe, and we're the only beings in it. I think that's somewhat naive to
absolutely.
consider that as like the end all be all, that there's nothing at all. Now, the question of whether are they intelligent beings is, it's a whole different thought process. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But I do think that there's probably people, especially if you consider like that there's a multiverse, let's say there's
Yeah.
multiple infinite amounts of you and I and infinite planes. I think
Mhm.
that there's got to be people somewhere, or people-esque things, or just beings in general. But whether they're at the same level of time in their evolution is, that's where it's kind of like somewhat hard for me to fathom as if they're at the same point,
Mhm.
because we've been around, let's say, what, 200,000 years?
200,000.
Yeah, somewhere around that time. whether there's a person on another planet or a being that's reached our level of intellect within that same time period is, I don't know, it's kind of hard. I think that there's no way that we're the only things.
Smart people.
Yeah. But I think within our galaxy, I think that we're the only ones. Maybe outside of our galaxy, that it's entirely plausible, though, I think.
No, dolphins have sex for pleasure, so they've got to be an incredible and intelligent species.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the idea behind intelligent, and I think humans as a species, we're very pragmatic,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that our ability to problem solve is not even our ability to problem solve. It's the fact that we were able to problem solve on land.
Mm-hmm.
Where we've got fruit and other animals to hunt and oxygen and just like you said, the law of averages. There's so much that kind of like helped us
Mm-hmm.
forward in the ability to say, hey, you know what, I'm kind of tired of hunting with my hands. Let me use a spear and I can go and grab a stick. I don't think dolphins can grab sticks. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of water and they're kind of just where they are. I think if you have a planet that's somewhere out there, at least in our galaxy or somewhere else, that has oxygen, that has celled organisms. Because I know this is something that like might sound a little bit crazy, but I've been kind of I've thought about it a while. I think that like life on Earth didn't originate on Earth. I think that we came from. I think there's a theory that the water that existed on Earth came from somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that most of the water actually from Earth came from asteroids and other things. So
exactly, and I think that like we know for Earth, for life, one of the biggest things that we need, the main building block behind life, is water.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there would be a reason why, if most of this life building, or these building blocks of life came from an extraterrestrial location, why that wouldn't also lead to there being life on other planets.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought that it'd be cool for every human, because humans, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, we seem to be the only things on this planet that don't make sense for the planet.
We're literally a virus or a plague upon the planet when you really get down to brass tacks of it.
Yeah, we're not terribly durable. We're not predators. We're mostly prey. We can come in and advance and do things like that, but Earth didn't seem like it was ready for humans. Like Mars might not be ready for humans. There's going to be something that we're going to need to take to Mars, like water or air or whatever we need to do in order to make Mars an actual like livable place.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because I feel that life on Earth is extraterrestrial in its origin, which
mm-hmm.
is why life started in the oceans as opposed to starting on the land and then creeping into the oceans. Where there's water, there tends to be life, because didn't they find? I'm probably thinking about. I'm probably not correct on this. But didn't they find some evidence of a unicelled organism on Mars?
From what I recall, I believe that like one of the rovers found what they believed to be something to that extent. So yeah.
And just looking at that, life isn't just lungs or it's that cell.
Mm-hmm.
It's that capacity for that thing to become something different, even if it isn't able to reproduce. Even if that Mars rover found something that doesn't fit our idea of what a living being is, the fact that it's not a rock, it's not a mineral, the fact that it is something else only leads me to believe that there has to be something out there. And like you said, yeah, maybe not intelligent to where humans are, because intelligence and ability to use that intelligence is two different things.
Yeah.
Dolphins are very smart, but bro, you can't live outside of water.
Yeah.
You know, like if dolphins could walk, I'm pretty sure like dolphins would be good. You know, if
Yeah,
they could
they'd
survive on
probably take
land,
over the
like
world. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't know what they could do with flippers. You know, you can't pull a trigger with flippers, so you know,
Yeah, they'd probably evolve like our vestigial ancestors, you know, where because I mean, if
yeah.
you look at even was like a manatee, when
Mm.
you like X-ray their skeletal system in the flippers, they still have like vestigial
Yeah, like
like
fingerprint.
hands and what you consider feet and things like that. So
Yeah,
I
they're just
mean,
waiting to lose those flippers, man.
yep. When you look at, you know, human beings, and I think we're pretty arrogant as far as expecting another species or life to be humanoid. You know, that's I think like we think we're the end all of everything, and that any other life in the universe is going to be humanoid in its nature is kind of like arrogant, I think. But
It really is. And humans aren't even that good. Like we're not even that dope as a species. Like we as modern day humans are riding off of the backs of like 7 of us.
mhm.
You know, the guy who made steam and electricity, you know, the guy like Albert Einstein's, you know, the guy these like 6 people who did something was like, yeah, okay, you know what? I'm going to revolutionize the world. And then every human in in their right mind, for whatever reason, feels that they're the smartest thing in the world. Like they're the hottest thing smoking out. They're like, no, bro. Like
Mhm.
you put me in any environment that is not my own, and I might as well be just fodder.
Mhm.
You know, you take you and I and go and drop us in like the Amazon. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll figure out a way to survive, but there's the
It's going to be
large
hard.
chance that
It's
something
going
will
to be
be
hard.
surviving on us.
Yeah.
You know, so you're right. Humans are very, very arrogant. But I think with that arrogance also comes with it, you know, planetary salvation.
Mhm.
You know, dinosaurs, how were, you know, they died. They came and they went, but it took a good amount of time for the world to kind of like restart and things like that. I mean, I guess the grand scheme of like an Earth, you know, thousands of years, millions of years is like, nah,
Yeah,
that
that's
was yesterday to the Earth. But what other what other species, as far as we know, is arrogant enough to believe that it can be multiplanetary?
yeah.
I don't think lions are caring about what's happening outside of the savannah. You know, like
Yeah, I really
everything
doubt
that
it.
everything that the lights touch is yours. What's that shadowy place over there? Don't even worry about it. We don't go over there. Like
Mhm.
we're cool here. Humans are like, wow, there's so much darkness up there. Let's go. You
Yep.
know, I think the humans have to be semi arrogant to want to explore the darkness.
Mhm.
It's, you know, if you're afraid of the darkness, you won't go into the darkness. Humans are fearful by nature, but I think that, you know, some of us have that ability to confront that fear. You know, and that's what companies like SpaceX are doing. They're going into a frontier that no one's ever been to before. We've sent, you know, probes, and we've got pictures of, you know, Pluto and things like that. We know what it looks like, but just knowing what something looks like and knowing what it's like to be there, two very
Yeah.
different things. Very
Like the point you're alluding to, as far as like if you're afraid of like the darkness and things like that, I think that the only reason that we have enlightened is because we've like headlong, you know, head front just jumped into that
yeah.
darkness, and that's the only reason we have been enlightened as far as like science and things that's concerned. So the only way we continue to be enlightened is to just headlong, just dive right in. You know, let's
Yeah.
just do it.
That's what has to happen. And then that's when you got dudes that was just like, yeah, see, I knew from a young age I was going to send people to space. It's anomalies like Elon Musk, you know. And I know people like, I I do feel that people put him on like this. I think that he may be like, okay, I know I'm a great man. I know I'm dope, but I know I'm awesome. But I think that when it comes to what he's doing it for more than reverence. And I
Mm.
think that's why people give him such reverence, is because I feel that he's doing it for such a good reason. You know what I mean? Like there are
Yeah.
people out there who want to be great to be acknowledged. I want to be great to be acknowledged. I'm a regular human.
Yeah.
You know, I would never think that in my lifetime that Christian would have the capacity to send somebody to another planet.
Hmm.
Because all I'm concerned, all me as a normal human, I'm thinking about is, well, I want to feed my kid.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like these are the things that I want to do, and I'm not as I'm not as like, all right, let me go ahead and confront every darkness.
Hmm.
The ultimate darkness is the darkness of space,
Yep.
and you know, even where we are as humans and colonizing the planet, there's no more darkness. If we continue to stay where we are, well, there's nothing else to confront, and that's why we need to leave, and that's why we
Hmm.
need to go to that space, and that's why, I think that Elon Musk is revered so much is because he understands that there is something better, and he's continuously working for something better. He's got all of his skin in the game for something better, and we don't have people like that.
Hmm.
And humanity is riding off of the backs of those 6 or 7 people. People say like, "Oh, Elon Musk is our Einstein," and I think that's unfair to Elon Musk. Yeah, I mean, I think that saying like Einstein is our Isaac Newton, I think that's unfair to what individual contributions to um, humanity is. You can say
Hmm.
like, oh, LeBron is the next Kobe, is the next Jordan, is the next this, because they were kind of revolutionized at kind of the same like bubble. Einstein, for as great as he was, it's is not building rockets. You get what I
Yep.
mean? Like this is the Tony Stark of our lifetime.
Hmm.
And I think that Elon Musk, I think it's a lot of pressure on his shoulders, to be so revered, to be held to such a level that, that there's a lot of pressure in that. If he fails, there's a lot of eyes on him. You get what I mean?
Hmm.
But there's so many people who are like, bro, if he failed, okay, at least he tried.
Yep.
And I think that's why one of the things that comes with fame is that you know I can't make a mistake. I can't misstep, and it's yeah. I sometimes I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah. No, he definitely has a lot. He's
A
got a lot
lot.
going on. Yeah.
And that's not only pressure from just society, but he's a dad, he's a human. You get what I mean?
Hmm.
Think about how we think about space. Imagine how he thinks about space. He probably goes to sleep. He probably has to go in like a sense deprivation chamber to sleep. And he just going to bed like, all right, cool. I'm wake up tomorrow and try to save humanity. There's a lot of writing on his back,
Hmm.
and I think that he should be okay. Let me rephrase that. The pedestal that he's on, I think he deserves to be at the pedestal. I don't think that there are many other humans like that. They're very good musicians and artists and poets and comedians. There's a lot of people who were able to kind of let this day by day monotony kind of continue on. And then there's somebody who's trying to put fucking people on other planets, man. It's crazy to me. There's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure, and normal humans would fold under that pressure. He's not folding, man. He's a
Yep.
good dude.
No, yeah, I definitely appreciate what he's done for us so far, and getting us to the point and where he's going to get us. I think that he's one of the forces that are basically driving all the want and will to do this. So I definitely give him credit for that.
He's the Anakin Skywalker of our time, man.
That's right.
You gotta bring balance to the Force.
So while we're talking about humanity, I wanted to breach this kind of like existential, thought of let's say we're beyond Mars,
Mm-hmm.
because we relatively know what may happen as to the human body on a scientific but not physical standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, have you ever watched the show The Expanse? Have you seen
No.
The Expanse?
Yeah, that's something I should watch.
Yeah, that's a great show. So
Is that what you
on
said?
the show, it's all about space. It's like we've been exploring the solar system and interstellar space for a long time, but people are changed in a way. They still look like people in the normal, but their ability to handle gravity is different.
Okay.
Because they're in interstellar space and they've never been on Earth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we go to Titan or Europa and we colonize one of those. Do you think people will fundamentally change in their physiology?
Absolutely. I think that, a lot of, they say it takes a village to raise an individual, to raise a child or whatever. Everything that you are is basically dependent upon your environment, right? Gravity allows a certain level of, connection to the earth. We are able to walk a certain speed, run a certain speed, drive a certain, whatever we're able to do. And that kind of affects our day to day. Well, I can only lift up 20 pounds. The average human can lift 35 pounds or whatever. That tends to affect what humans are able to do.
Yep.
When if you were to go to another place where you're able to either lift more or lift less.
About that.
No, you're good. If you go to somewhere that you're able to do more or do less, I think that would change you fundamentally, your day-to-day base. If tomorrow you were able to lift up 3 times as much as you could lift up today, you might choose a new passion. You know what I mean? Like if I could just lift 100 pounds like it's nothing, I might go into construction. Hey, we need that beam. Don't worry about it. I got it. Pow. You would be able to do, some different things, and that would also weigh on your mind as well. What you're able to do physically is really really a testament to your environment. Some people, like I said earlier, are able to jump 4 feet off the ground. That's dope. That's amazing. But if you were able to jump 20 feet off the ground, you might, once you come back to Earth, though, I think if you're able to go to a place that has a higher gravity than Earth, I think that would make you you'd be more sturdier. You probably become more warlike.
Yeah. Because
of your ability to tank. Whereas if you go to a place where your physical abilities are diminished for what you're able to accomplish, like mentally, I think that even if you look at Mars, if you go on Mars, we put people on Mars, the next 50 years, I think if we were to go up there after 50 years of being on Mars, you would see a different type of people. You get varying levels of vitamin D that would cause, certain levels of whatever vitamin D does to our bodies. You got plant life and animal life and everything that you would have to ingest. All that stuff matters. All that stuff comes into effect when you're looking at interplanetary travel. So I think absolutely we would be different across multiple planets and things like that.
Do you think, which is obviously inevitable when you get people together, do you think that the first child on Mars will be actually able to survive on Earth?
I think it might. I think that child would have to grow.
Because obviously we're born here on Earth with a certain amount of gravity, which our cells react to and work according to that law of nature. So that's just what I'm curious what you think about that.
So survive, yes. Maybe not a great existence immediately. If the child were able to grow maybe to like 20, some years of age and kind of get up there to where they have more bone to take that, But I think that, if you're going to be born on Mars, it might be more beneficial to stay on Mars. We have, the astronauts that are in orbit for 11 months at a time, and they come back and they're just weaker, a lot weaker. And that's just, that's right there. And they come back and, but their bones have already been used to decades of 1 times gravity. going to 30% of our gravity, I don't think that it would be a really good existence for that kid.
Yeah, you'd probably be in enormous amounts of pain from the gravity well that we have here, because and a lot of people I think misconstrue how strong gravity is, because when you look at like physics and science, which I've read a lot of books, obviously doesn't make me an expert by any means whatsoever.
It makes you an expert.
But gravity is actually like one of the weaker forces of the universe. You have like the strong nuclear, the different like weak nuclear forces, things like that. When you look, I mean, gravity to us is extremely strong. We can't jump, like you said, 4 feet or more without, you really have some physical ability. So I think the first kid on Mars, if they were to return to Earth, they would have to do some type of like water type of like environment in order to allow them to slowly maybe integrate into that. But even then, it would be a struggle.
Yeah, it's like when you're a kid and you go on those rides that kind of like push you against the wall.
Yep.
And you do that like you try to like reach towards the center thing. I think you would get kind of like, maybe not, of course it wouldn't be that crazy, but to go into a place that has 3 times your gravity, I mean, it can't. I think humans are worse. I think that okay, if that baby were to come down or if that child were to be here, I don't think it would take them years to get acclimated to it. I think that the younger the person is, it actually might be better for them to come. Now, I know it's saying, now I'm thinking about it a little bit more, it kind of contradicts what I said earlier, but as a child being able to grow those bones, to go from a place of lower gravity like Mars to come to Earth, they would then have to grow, from that point on, and it might stunt their growth. You never know. Or they could get that density back by being exposed to that pressure. But I think, if you're 25, 30 years old and then you decide to come down to Earth, it might not be a good look.
Yeah, you might not actually last all that long, but who knows? I mean, time will tell. We might have some form of rapid bone growth injection. I mean, who knows? The way innovation is and things like nowadays.
Artificial gravity and things like that. I think that, especially I think that maybe when we do get to Mars, I think the one of the things that we'll probably work on is having Mars be as Earth-like as possible. Having somebody work on something that's able to mimic, gravity. Like you said, maybe even just a really pressurized environment, like water or something like that, that an individual is able to do, or maybe they carry more weight around or carry like weighted suits. I don't know. I'm not sending people to Mars. So, I think that, there's definitely going to be some differences between Earth humans and Mars humans.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of like on that show I was talking about. There's a big divide between people who live on like the asteroid belts versus Mars versus Earth. So I think, it's inevitable that we'll probably get to that point. But when we get there, we'll handle it accordingly, I'm sure. But I wanted to ask you a somewhat controversial topic between people who believe in space and science and things like that. Or since we're talking about gravity, there's a whole host of people who believe that gravity is not real.
Okay.
What's your take on that?
I mean, okay. As far as I'm concerned, it's like one of those things where a lot of people, especially, and I'm not trying to like diminish religion because I understand why people are religious.
Yeah.
I think that science is just people trying to understand the concept of God. There is this, well, where did everything come from? And the Bible is like, or religion is like, well, we know where everything came from. And that's kind of that. And then the people who are on the religious side of things are like, okay, well, let me try and dive a little bit more into that, because clearly, a God will have its own machinations and things like that. But everything that we have damn near in 2020 comes from a basic understanding of science. Without gravity, or our cars, we would just float off.
Yep.
There has to be some force keeping us cemented to our planet. And if you don't believe in gravity, then what do you believe in? What is your explanation of why things aren't just floating all over the place?
Mhm.
You know, it's like the flat Earth thing. It's like, all right, well, have you ever taken a flight? Yeah. So okay, well, explain to me how science has made it so we can fly, but you still believe that the Earth is flat. And I mean, I get it. I understand it. I guess I from a perspective of like if you've never tried to look more into it, but it's just a confirmational bias. You're gonna want to believe what you want to believe, no matter what.
Yep.
You don't want to believe that gravity exists. Okay, then gravity doesn't exist. But you at least got to tell me what's in what's the substitute for gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in gravity?
Of course, yeah, I
I'm
do.
assuming,
Yeah.
right?
I also
Like,
believe the Earth is round. So
yeah.
we'll get that one out of the way.
What do people believe is happening in space? If you don't believe in gravity, I would assume that you don't believe in space travel.
Yeah,
I would
there's
assume that.
also there's like I don't even know if I have the accurate count at this point, but there's space deniers who believe that space isn't real. There's the flat Earth people. There's
Mhm.
gravity deniers. There's hollow Earth, concave Earth. I mean, there's a whole host
It's
of
all,
people. Yeah. So, but what I find interesting with people who are like say gravity isn't real, that the Earth is flat, what have you, is that, like you said, it's confirmational bias where they will try and go after things that we know that we don't completely understand, and
yeah,
then say, I mean, we understand gravity. Something falls at 9.8 meters per second squared. I mean, it's testable. Anybody can test it. You
yeah.
know what I
Just
mean?
anything.
So you drop something and you can figure it out. But when it comes to like certain aspects of space and things like that, they'll try and attach to things that we know we don't understand fully capable yet, and
Mhm.
just be like, oh, because that it's not real. You know what I mean? And I find that kind of an interesting viewpoint as to how you can live your life by thinking that way.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, well, because you know, it can't be explained currently. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's
well,
just an asinine way of thinking, I think.
yeah, and you have to be able to understand that there are going to be explanations that have to be found. But
Mm-hmm.
in the interim, from what we do know, gravity is a thing.
Yeah.
I've fallen plenty of times in my life. I've never tripped and then continued along the trajectory of forward until I hit something. I had to push myself down.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
find that the most like, that's the one that's hard. I mean, I guess like the whole flat earth, like I get it. People want to just believe whatever. I can't understand it personally, but I get it. You know what I mean? You would do what you want to do. But like gravity, I don't see how that's a debatable topic.
yeah, it's why what's the explanation to people who don't believe in gravity? What's the explanation for how to jump, a hop, a skip, walking?
Mm.
What is how can we be on a planet without gravity? Is this just how things are supposed to work? Like, no, like
I think that's a
everything.
lot of the argument of it, is that this is how things were preordained. And like, again, I'm not a religious person. I'm not trying to knock religion. If it helps people get through the day, whatever, that's all
Mhm.
well and good. But I think it's from a lot of the religious crowd who believe that it's not real because this is the way things were ordained and that's the way they are. But it's
Yeah,
not testable. You can't verify that in any shape or form. So
yeah, and I was, I have this conversation often when it comes to religion. It's I don't. The reason why I don't knock it is because a lot of the things in religious texts are not falsifiable, so
mm-hmm.
they have to be taken as is. The afterlife is not something that you can come back from. So if you're going to believe in it, you have to believe in the fact that you cannot experience that and
Mm-hmm.
that it is at the end of your life. But for everything else, when it comes to religion, I think that we're all really trying to play the same game. I think that if God were to create everything, he would probably put into place a what's the word I'm looking for? A force for humans to not just fly off everywhere. That connection to the earth would be what we would consider gravity. That's we're all talking about the same thing. That fundamental force of attraction between the earth and us is gravity. Even if it's preordained, even if that is what always is, and that's the way of the world, and things are supposed to work like that. Okay, well, we're just going to call it gravity. Well, what do you call it? Well, we call it preordained. Okay, so we're saying the same thing, right? Well, no, because you're no, we're saying the same thing. I've always told everybody, science is just trying to explain God. And I don't think God has an issue with us trying to figure it out. If he did, probably be a lot more, a lot more cataclysms and a lot more floodings of earths and things like that. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of schools of thought that anything the government basically has said is untrue. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who fall under that category of every single thing that the government has ever put out in education is wrong. And because of that, they don't want to believe about gravity. They don't want to believe about the moon landings. They don't want to,
right.
They don't want to believe space is real because people have been there and told them, even though you can watch video from the ISS right now. You can pull up a live feed, which is what blows my mind, that people just can't do that level of research for themselves.
Yeah, it's like, have you ever watched a show called Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I watched some of it.
So you should watch all of it. It's a great show. But there was an episode, and it's, of course, everyone's had this conversation, this argument before, but Mac is the religious one of the group. And he was saying that this is why, the reasons why he believes in God. And one of the other guys, Dennis, was like, these are just words written by somebody who you've never met before, that you were taking as fact just because you want to believe it. And then Mac was like, well, wouldn't that be, in layman's terms, isn't that exactly what you're doing? You're opening up scientific textbooks by somebody who you've never met and taking that as true or false. And I think that happens with whatever you want to believe in. If you want to believe the earth is flat, you're not going to find or look for reasons to debunk your reasoning. If you and I believe that the earth is round, so why would we go out and try to debunk whether or not the world is round? You know what I mean? We're gonna believe the things that makes the most sense to us. I just also choose, and you choose, I'm assuming as well, to believe the things that seem to be kind of beneficial to the world. We basically skim on a round planet when we fly in airplanes. That's kind of what we do. So I think that it's just people don't want to be wrong. I think everybody wants to have an understanding of something. And people who can't wrap their minds around why the earth is round would want to say, well, I mean, really, what does that do for anybody? What does that do for an individual to deny the earth being round? What does that do for anybody's day?
I think that a lot of it may, at least from if you look at it from like a religious point of view, I think the thing with space and whether there is a God, which we're obviously not going to get into, I think it's the fear of the unknown, that there isn't anything except for this, and this was all an accident. I think that's what scares a lot of people. And as far as the flat Earth people,
no saving those guys.
I'm really trying to like there's the unfortunate death of the guy yesterday who launched himself on that steam powered rocket to do the whole deal. And I think it's really unfortunate that someone would put themselves in that to try and do this experiment to verify their point of view, knowing that so far there's been no evidence that proves that, and then they end up dying for. I mean, I get it. Like, you do what you want to believe in. I mean, us being in the military, you know, I've had friends who have been killed in combat. I was in Afghanistan, you know, like, we're willing to do things for what we believe in. But I think it's a sad state when you die for something that majority of the world believes is untrue. You know, like that kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you could put
not to like hate on what he did. You know, he was a person. He, you know, is a human being.
He's definitely a human, and that's something that. But you know, even if you're as much as you know, we would like to say about that, it's real brave that he was able to put himself, you know, in those positions for the rest of the world who believed in what he believed in. Now, more than likely, this hasn't shaken any flat earthers' belief. You know, no one's going to see him pass and then be like, "Oh, well, okay, I guess the Earth is round now." You know, there's going to have to be some other explanation as to why this happened. But just like we were saying earlier, you know, we as humans are trying to put ourselves in a position to explain the unknown, and you know, I think there was multiple ways he could have gone about it. He definitely could have put you know, a watermelon or you know, a stuffed animal. He could have done something, but he was willing to put his life on the line for that. And I mean,
it's respectable in any form, you know.
Respectable as hell. I mean, you got to give it to the man. Most people aren't willing to get in trouble for their beliefs, let alone die for them. So, you know, rest in peace to this individual. I just wish that there was, you know, less, you know, less of a pushback against, you know, the Earth being round, when the Earth being round is really how we've advanced as a civilization. We haven't advanced. We didn't advance because the world, you know, we thought the Earth was the center of the universe at some point. You know, the world, and then somebody was like, "Hey, yeah, I don't think that's right." You know, I think the sun is the center of the universe. And then somebody was like, "But if the sun's the center of the universe, and what's all this other stuff?" And that's kind of how we've gone about it. I'm pretty sure at some point people believe the Earth was flat. You know, like that.
Oh yeah, for a long time, I think.
Yeah, it's a regression of what we believed. And, you know, those older beliefs haven't necessarily died out. They're kind of like there's this like trend where it's like, okay, people believe in a flat Earth, and it's like, all right, well, it's kind of plateaued here, and the only thing you can do from there is pick up steam. But you know, we've advanced so far from the concept of gravity, from the concept of there being a round Earth, from the Coriolis effect, from all this other stuff. It's basically undeniable at this point. If you'd like to deny it, I mean, by all means. We're not qualified to tell somebody, "Hey, you're wrong." But there are plenty of qualified people out there, I would say, who, you know, there's no flat Earth studies anymore. There's a reason for that.
I mean, you look at like a basic, like a military sniper on long distance shooting. You have to take in the curvature and the amount of movement the Earth has done, the Coriolis effect, from the time you fire that round to the time it impacts the target. So, I mean, if a military sniper can do these things that basically negates your viewpoint, then that's not even a scientist. That's just a dude who's shooting a gun. You know,
dude shooting a gun. I mean, imagine no gravity, flat Earth. We would all be dead. There'd be bullets just.
The oceans would be in the middle of the planet, and we'd all have drowned a long time ago.
Yeah, if you're throwing a ball or you're throwing a football without gravity, well, how is it coming back down? What is that? I don't know. That's wild to me. It's wild.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that the same viewpoint with the Apollo missions, with the moon landings. They're like, oh, you know, this is all fake because we haven't been back since, so therefore there's no way that these guys could have ever gotten there. You're like, oh, I'm pretty sure the guys who went might have a slightly different take.
No, I mean, and that's one of those things though, to where like, you know, Neil and Buzz, you're looking at they're like, hey man, I don't care what anybody said. I saw the Earth from the moon, and you know that's damn. And I understand why people can say that it's fake. I think the conspiracy theorists aren't always crazy. They're just really, they're pushing that boundary of what's real and what's not. And I'm saying like, oh, the moon, how is there wind when there's no wind on the moon? And I'm like, well, why would there not be wind on the moon? Like, why? Wind is just the earth moving. Like, it's, wind didn't just like pop up one day and it's like, all right, here I go. All right, like,
yeah, I mean, there's solar winds, there's all
there's
types of stuff.
And even if it, I think that people do want it to be. A lot of people do want it to be fake,
Mm-hmm.
but why? I don't understand. What does that do for anybody to debunk the moon landing? But they have to go to the moon themselves, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of instance that, in the scientific community, there's a lot of feeling. I think that's along the same lines of, I don't believe something until I can test it, because testability is key to scientific method. You should be able to recreate any test and get the same answer. And if you get the same answer, it's true, whatever it is. So I think it's going to take something similar to that for a lot of these people, where they physically have to go there, see what they can see, and then that'll change their viewpoint.
Yeah, and we're only 200 years into modern humanity.
Yep.
Electricity hasn't always been a thing. We've, just barely got out of candlelight in the grand scheme of things. Humans are on the clock at what, 11:59?
Mm-hmm.
In 59 seconds. Like we kind of just got here. It took 200,000 years of humanity to get to the moon once. I don't think that shouldn't shut out the fact that it happened. And, we definitely should go there again. But those are some brave individuals. Buzz, Neil, and who else went up there? It was 3 people, right? It just, those are some brave individuals. And I mean, just imagine sitting on a rocket and behind you, all this fuel, all this explosion, all of this earth, all of this gravity, all of these possibilities that could go wrong. You land on another planet. So I think that, people just want to feel that they're right. So whether or not they are, it's not important. It's a matter of, well, the moon landing is fake because, blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah, what does that do for your day? Well, I like knowing that the moon landing was fake. Okay, but does that help anybody? Like, what's the grand scheme of things? We choose to believe that people did land on the moon because we understand what that means for humanity as a whole. Even if the government were lying to us, it's a better lie to believe in. To me, I would love to. Space is dope. Why would I not want to believe in space? Why would I rather believe that Earth is it?
I think the amount of, I think the biggest hole in their argument, besides all the others, but I mean, like, to me, like the biggest one is the amount of people that would have to be in collusion to keep something like space fake or the Apollo missions fake. You're talking 600,000 people or more at least who have worked on these projects, and they're all lying. Come on now, that seems kind of.
And not only are they all lying, they're continuing to lie. They're passing down the lie. This is a lineage of lies. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's no way that would be, able to happen. Someone somewhere would have said something that would, So I don't know. I don't get it, and I don't have to get it, I guess, if you believe what you believe and it's not hurting anybody else. But I think there is a slight tendency nowadays with the way certain things in political or, entertainment culture, wherever you want to consider it, is when it starts being taught to people that these things aren't happening or aren't real. I think that's where it then becomes a problem.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like racism. It has to be taught.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody who believes in these things has to learn it from somewhere else. There's the person who said, "Hey, the Earth is flat," has to tell somebody else, who then has to tell somebody else, tell somebody else, tell somebody else. I just think that if we tried to preach more along the lines of like, hey, progress needs to
Yep.
happen. That's the mentality that we need to have as humans in order for us to advance as humans. If all we're trying to do is just bitch and moan about the same stuff, we're never going to grow. There's no point in growth if everybody in the world is just going to say, "Hey, well, we're not growing because blah 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 blah." I
Yeah.
think that it's kind of sad, but it's understandable. We're humans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we're not infallible, and any person isn't. So
the unknown is such a wonderful thing that we just want to be right. But no, no, I don't get it. I had an argument with this girl I used to work with. She believed that like the Earth was flat, and then it was because of I forgot. I think it was B.O.B. This is a rap artist.
yeah, he believes it's flat.
Yeah, he was like, if the world's round, then why can't I see Chicago and it's 50 miles that way? It's like, all right, well, the world is round, but there's flat points on the world. Like, why is that so tough to believe in? That's why you can't see Los Angeles, dude. Like, go to the highest mountain that you can and look out. You will not see the other side of the world, and there's a reason for that.
Yep.
The curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, and I actually just shared a photo today of somebody, I believe they had a gimbal set up, and they time lapse the rotation of the Earth against the Milky Way in the background on like a really clear night in some city. And you can clearly, like, obviously over the period of like, a day of it rotating. And that's the thing, that you can physically observe these with your eyes. You don't need a special camera. You don't need, a phone. You can literally just go outside, lay down on the ground, or fix a point ahead of you out in space and look straight ahead. And over a certain period of time, you will see this happen.
Yeah.
And so you're literally denying what your own eyes are telling you at that point.
And that's a good amount of everything. That's a good amount of all of these, these theories of, the flat Earth or the no gravity. How can like a lot of people walk by faith. The real idea behind religion is walk by faith and not by sight. Science is the opposite. Science is walk by sight and not by faith.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not devoutly religious, you fall into the other category. If you're not walking by faith, then you have to walk by sight. Well, I don't know what you're walking by if you're not walking by either of those two things. I don't think that a lot of religious people believe the Earth is flat. I don't think they're like mutually exclusive. I know a lot of religious people believe that the Earth is only like 6,000 years old.
Yeah, or I've heard 9,002, which is just don't even get me started on that one. But
I mean, we know there's trees older than that. But if that's what people want to believe, cool. If that's what gets them through the day, great. But if it's not doing anything for anybody, then really just keep that to yourself. I don't know. I'm just I understand it from a perspective of somebody who has wanted to understand the greater, idea of the universe. But from just somebody who's just like listening to it, I don't think that something's not true just because you can't prove it isn't. What is that? There's a popular saying, right? If you, it's not as popular as I think it is then, because I forgot it.
Well, it's like it's all about confirmation bias, right? You want to believe something because the sake of believing.
Yeah,
it's not that you know it by verifying this independently. It's just that you want to believe it because that's what you want to believe. So, and I get, and again, I get it. If it gets you through the day and helps you be a better person, then by all means,
believe everything you want.
Yeah. just don't impress it upon me, because it's not going to work. But that's just.
I am a round earth fearing dude. I like asteroids and things like that. These are things that I believe in. So
I figured we would do one more quick topic here, and that would be colonization again, but in the sense of, like we were kind of alluding to earlier, of how you control a sense of like governing of colonization. So do you think that it would have to be what we consider like our democratic process? Do you think one person would have to be in charge? Like, what's your take on that?
I think that as as people and populations increase, you do need a governing body, but not in the sense of like I think the idea behind a president's a figurehead. He's not the most
Yeah.
powerful person in the country. Um, you know, Congress and Senate. I think you do need that at a large scale. But I think if you just send good people, I don't know. Honestly, I think at some point somebody's going to do something wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think
There's
people, when you actually look at human history, we're inherently violent creatures.
yeah,
So there's going to be somebody who will just want to do something nefarious for the sake of doing nefarious things. I mean, it's
yeah.
just bound to happen. So
So then when you reach 1 million people, yeah, by the first like 1,000, 2,000 people, I think the first couple thousand people, the colonizers are going to be there. Oh, okay, I think this is just talking about Mars. So I don't want to make it too specific to Mars.
yep.
Um, I think that initially it'd be like scientists and it'd be like those individuals who are trying to come together for the greater good. But I think when you're talking about like planetary conquests, then in colonization, I think you might need to have somebody to kind of rein everything in.
Mm-hmm. I was just saying, I think that it's the first people would be so concerned with survival that
Mm-hmm.
nothing else would matter until that point. But once you reach a certain population density, then it would be inevitable.
Yeah. And honestly, you might have those people, those initial people who might just be a little more violent. Because,
Yeah.
like you said, survival, yeah, I don't know what survival, I've never been in a fight or flight situation where it's just me and 6 other people and hunger.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is going to have to eat, somebody's going to eat somebody on Mars. I just think it's one of those things that kind of has to happen. You only have 6 of us. There's only so much food. I mean, unless you're going to continue to send food and continue to send resources.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like the sixth. How long are those people going to be able to survive? As far as we know.
Well, the 6, I think, first people with a starship full of stuff. If you didn't send anything else, there's never another shipment. I think it's somewhere on the order of about 2 years.
Yeah. So that as that year starts to like wind down and resources get low. Oh no. It may be pretty to think, oh man, it's going to be great for humanity and blah blah blah, and then somebody's going to have to eat. And then I think that's where it all comes from. It's just that the that idea of survival. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people will help each other survive. A limited amount of people probably won't be able to survive as easy. And I think that the governing body should really just kind of help people stay along the path of what's better for humanity. It's not what we've done.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how human government is. But absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's just gonna happen over and over and over again. So immediately, no, but I think there will have to be some sort of governing body. I think even just those 6 people on the ship, they are going to need some sort of leader.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got 6 people going off and doing what they want to do. Well, where's the cohesiveness? Where's the cohesion? And yeah, I think a governing body is always a good thing. It's just that the governing body tends to be corrupt. That's just how that is.
Yeah, I think you'd have to have, especially on like scientific mission, you'd have to have a command structure, just like a military-esque environment of,
Yeah.
This is the commander of the ship and they're in charge of this and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But, once you reach that population density where it starts to become like critical, which I don't know, I guess 6 people, once it reached like 100 people, that might be considered like a critical population density on Mars.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? But
you got people to reproduce and things like that.
And I think that the biggest problem, though, when it comes to colonization, if you just want a general term of any planetary body, is going to be resource management.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everyone's going to obviously want, because there's so many minerals on asteroids that we've actually seen, from either from spacecraft passing by them and scanning them, or the recent missions I've actually landed on asteroids. There's water on asteroids. We could capture these asteroids and bring them in, but then who's in charge of this and who stands to benefit from it? That's all the questions we need to answer.
And until then, we might need a governing body. I think right now, if you took the government out of it, I think humans would be all right. I think there's a lot less, like you said, nefarious people than there are people who just want to exist. So a lot of times the government is, I am a huge fan of. I'm like Ron Swanson on Parks and Recreations. I understand why government exists, but I think it's in too many places.
Yeah.
And I think that a huge government isn't a good thing. So I think when it comes to things like going to Mars or interplanetary colonization, I think a small kind of like founding fathers situation would be good, where it's like, hey, we're going to have something that's for the betterment of everybody. But yeah, I don't think that there needs to be like a president or anything.
I think eventually those colonies, if we want to just consider them that term, would become independent, just like the 13 colonies here against England. I think eventually it's just necessary in terms of distance that you would need to just basically be a whole new peoples, basically.
And but it would be cool if we were able to colonize Mars as a uniform thing. But yeah, like you said, it's distance. There's no reason, there's no way that the president of the United States would have control over something as far away as like Germany. And it's like, we might as we're separated by land mass, water, and all this extra stuff. We might as well just go ahead and create two governments.
Yeah, because if we're landing on Titan, one of the moons of Jupiter or Europa, I'm sorry, like then considering something that's 1 billion miles away, relatively, approximately, is you're not really going to be able to govern that from a sense of the U.S. If it takes you 2 hours to send a signal to this, spacecraft that's orbiting it, trying to govern people in that type of fashion would just be naive, I think, to consider that would work.
Yeah, now if I can show up in like 15 minutes, it's like, all right, bro. I call up the police. The police coming from Earth. Be right here.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I don't think that's going to work, but
we'll figure it out, I'm sure. As we get there, as we go along, it'll get there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm all for small government, good leadership.
Yep. I think that's what it's going to take for those things, especially.
Absolutely.
Well, my man, I appreciate you being on the podcast with me, being the first guest. I hope that this is a recurring thing that we might be able to do here. If you could, is there any type of closing thing where people can find you? What you got upcoming? What can we look forward to?
Oh, I mean, as the number 2 Cybertruck fan, you guys can definitely follow me at Los Angeles Tesla. I'm trying to start I want to start the Los Angeles Cybertruck owners like little thing. I'm trying to figure that out. But if anybody has any, venues or anything like that they know is looking for comedians, or if anybody just wants to reach out, I'm really just, if somebody is going through something, or if anybody just needs somebody to talk to, that's what I'm here for. I don't have anything crazy in the works right now. I've got a book that's coming out soon. It's really short. It's like 24 pages. It's a good 30-minute read on just really, really being not necessarily true to yourself, because of course everybody should be true to yourself, but more along the lines of using your vessel for positivity, or not even positivity, but just really, really believing in yourself and what you're doing, So I've got that coming out, but I'm real boring. I'm just once that Cybertruck comes out, I probably have no reason to exist anymore. I wouldn't know what to do.
I might be right there with you because I ordered it on the first day as well. So
Oh hell, he was like, you can actually go reserve it right now. It's like press that. I was like, I don't even know if I have this 100. I was like, but I don't know. I almost broke my phone with how hard I pressed that button. Tri-motor.
We're excited for the future, so that's a good thing.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm really, I would love to continue to hop on people's podcasts. This is the best podcast I've been on so far. It's about space, and space is dope.
Space is awesome. Individual. I appreciate it. So are you.
So really, I'll be out there. Like I said, Los Angeles Tesla. I'm just a dude who really, really, really likes the Cybertruck.
Well, I appreciate again you being on the show today, and like I said, we will hopefully continue this in the future.
Absolutely.
You have a good day, my man.
You too, man.
All right, thanks.
Later.